Hello and good day. I'm Kagan and this is Rock-A-Boom. George Washington, you remember him, our first president? We remember him for a lot of other firsts too. First in war, first in peace. But first in buying around for our other founding fathers? Okay, I cannot tell a lie. There's no painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware to get to his favorite tavern in time for happy hour. But it's true that our first president was also first in distilling spirits and selling them to his new fellow Americans. Before the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War, George Washington was one of the richest men in Virginia, with most of his wealth tied to his estate and plantation in Mount Vernon, despite what you may have heard about cherry trees, which is the biggest myth about George Washington since wooden teeth, also a myth. The primary crop grown at Mount Vernon was tobacco. Washington was not just a great soldier and politician, he was also an astute businessman. When he saw the growth of the colonies, he diversified, switching from tobacco to wheat, a crop that could be sold for flour, feed, and, you guessed it, fun. After retiring from politics, Washington decided to make his own rye whiskey, which was all perfectly legal at the time. Even if it wasn't, who's going to argue with George Washington? His plantation already had a grist mill, which was used to grind wheat into flour. All he needed was a staff, a distillery, and a recipe. The staff consisted of 2 paid employees and 6 slaves. You heard right, slaves. Whoa, George, you've got some splaining to do. At one time, Washington owned over 100 slaves. While he never publicly denounced slavery, it was said he opposed slavery in private, thought it was a threat to the unity of the country, and was the only founding father to write in his will to free his slaves when he died. At least we can drink to that. Speaking of drinking, Washington's staff operated a boiler, mash tubs, and copper pots and made his whiskey out of a recipe of 60% rye, 35% corn, and 5% barley. That must have been a winning combination because in 1799, the Mount Vernon Distillery produced 11,000 gallons of alcohol, the most of any distillery on the East Coast. Unfortunately, Washington died the following year, which means his slaves were freed, but his distillery was shut down. Washington's distillery burned down in 1814. His Mount Vernon estate was passed down to his heirs and was eventually purchased by the Commonwealth of Virginia and restored. The original grist mill was put back into operation in 1932, and in 2007, the distillery was excavated and restored. Hold on to your wooden teeth, Washington whiskey fans. I know I said it was a myth, just play along. The curators of the estate received special permission from the government and in April of 2013 began selling whiskey made from Washington's original recipe at $95 a bottle. So how does it taste? Let's just say it's a little different than the whiskey we're used to drinking. For one thing, it's not aged, which allows whiskey to absorb the smoky flavors of wooden aging barrels while taking some of the edge off the taste. A reviewer in Washington's day called his original stuff very bad rye whiskey, while one tasting today's newly distilled batch said it had a pretty sharp taste. Which, in the whiskey world, is just a nice way of saying, hey, it's George Washington's whiskey. Give the guy a break. I wonder if Washington's whiskey had anything to do with why Ben Franklin was flying that kite in a thunderstorm.